Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. The WBC have cancelled the Deontay Wilder and Andy Ruiz final eliminator, and it will make a ruling later this year about what's going to happen next. So the WBC champion Tyson Fury, who fought his mandatory in what was it, April of 2022, probably won't face his next mandatory, or at least until early in 2024, if in fact it's not a little bit later than that. So let's go through the statement here, pretty brief. The WBC Board of Governors has ruled to cancel the order which was issued during the last annual convention calling for a final elimination bout between Deontay Wilder and Andy Ruiz Jr. to determine the mandatory challenger of the division. The WBC will evaluate the current situation in the division in order to review the viable options and, if necessary, issue a new ruling during the WBC annual convention to be held in Uzbekistan in November. So it's going to be the end of the year before we really know what's going to happen. And who's to say it won't be another sort of semi-final elimination type tournament, which they did for this one. Remembering, you had Andy Ruiz Jr. face Luis Ortiz in a semi-final eliminator. Deontay Wilder faced Robert Helenius. So what's going to happen now? Is Deontay Wilder and Andy Ruiz Jr. going to be involved in some way, shape or form? Possibly not Deontay Wilder, because right throughout this whole situation with Ruiz, he's only ever been lukewarm on the situation. Him and his trainer at one point earlier in the year said, look, we've got potential other options. It's not just Andy Ruiz Jr. More recently, Wilder and also Malik Scott, his trainer, had said, yeah, well, we're trying to make a fight. Deontay Wilder was out on social media calling for Andy Ruiz Jr. to agree to his end of the deal. Ruiz Jr. also vice versa, saying similar types of sentiments. So it looked like it might happen. Remembering, they're both under the PBC banner, but it's seemingly gone by the wayside. Should have been an easy fight to make, given they're on the same side of the street. But obviously it's boxing, it's never easy. You know, the politics of boxing sometimes, get in the way of the fights that we need to see. This one here would have been a good fight, and both coming off losses in the last year or two, it would have secured a title shot at some point. And obviously, Wilder and Ruiz is pretty much the biggest fight at PBC that they can make within their heavyweight stable. Seemingly not going to happen, or at least not for the WBC final eliminator. So when you look at the rankings, and this is really interesting. So you've got Wilder, Ruiz, Anthony Joshua, Aslanbek Makhmudov, Frank Sanchez, Dillian Whyte, Jared Anderson, Martin McCauley, Zan Kossobutski, Joseph Parker, Otto Wallin, Agi Kabiar, Luis Ortiz, F.A. Ajagba, Filip Hrgović. So right off the bat, Filip Hrgović, he's not going to fight for the WBC because he's got the IBF mandatory locked down. But there are other names probably unlikely at this point. Dillian Whyte, well, he's in a world of trouble with a failed drugs test and he's got to clear his name. Seemingly Deontay Wilder out of the mix, but Andy Ruiz Jr. right from the get-go has been, and I guess in that fight, Wilder would have been the A side. Ruiz has always sort of been beholden to Wilder, but he has publicly said the right things, that he wants to make the fight and let's get it made, etc., etc. So will the WBC go, okay, well, Ruiz should be part of it? If they do, there's all sorts of names. But if they don't, would they do just, hey, let's have a final eliminator? Or would they say, let's have another mini tournament? Which, of course, would also give Tyson Fury more time. At the moment, Tyson Fury is being allowed by the WBC to effectively do what he wants. He won't be defending that belt in 2023 at all because he's facing Francis Ngannou. So they seem to be allowing Fury some leeway, so maybe there would be other names if it was a semi-final tournament. Just remembering as well, you've got some fighters in this list who are fighting in a week's time at the time that I record this video. Jared Anderson will be back in action. He will win, and he will probably go a little bit higher, probably above Dillian Whyte. Zan Kossobutski is facing F.A. Ajagba. The winner of that all of a sudden could catapult themselves up the rankings even more. Could we have a situation where they go, okay, well, let's have a semi-final tournament, Aslanbek Makhmudov versus Frank Sanchez and Jared Anderson versus Zan Kossobutski. Remembering, you've got a situation where Top Rank wanted to make the Kossobutski fight for Anderson. Apparently, Kossobutski had visa issues and they weren't able to have the fight. But if it's Efe Ajagba beating Kossobutski, well, you could have a situation, any of those names mixed and matched. And maybe we don't need to see Efe Ajagba versus Frank Sanchez, though. We've been there, done that, got the postcard. And I think if Sanchez was to face Makhmudov as a final eliminator or semi-final eliminator, probably looks a lot similar to that fight Sanchez had with Efe Ajagba. But if they're looking to get on board with the next sort of rising American heavyweight contender, you know, they could order Jared Anderson to be in a final eliminator versus someone, maybe an Andy Ruiz Jr. or a Frank Sanchez. Those would be fantastic fights. There are some different options. But some of the other guys like Bacoli, Varleen, Caballero, I think they're kind of on the outside looking in. So Makhmudov, Sanchez, Anderson, Kossobutski and Ajagba, that mix of names is probably going to involve someone in some sort of eliminator. Because there are other matchups, but do we need to see them? Or some of them we have seen. Ruiz versus Ortiz, for example, which was a WBC eliminator. So there is options, but the WBC, what's it going to do at the end of the year? And Fury will not defend the belt, at least this year. And will they give him leeway to, if they have a semi-final type tournament again, basically it could be the end of next year. And who knows what Fury will be doing by then. But I do think that between now and then, you know, you've got the likes of an improving Jared Anderson on the rise up, Frank Sanchez, who's looking for a title shot, guys like Makhmudov. These are the sort of opportunities that, and especially with the positioning now in the ranking, that they will just snap the hand off the WBC to take if they can get it. If it is guys that are way down the list that get an opportunity and seemingly seen as maybe a mismatch or something like that, I think fans will be scratching their head and questioning it. But I think there are fights to be made if the WBC wants to pull the trigger. So we'll see what happens. And obviously, this is point in time rankings. So by the end of the year, you could have Jared Anderson almost at the top, especially if he fights another couple of times. Maybe Frank Sanchez, Arslanbek Makhmudov, maybe one of them loses at some point. There is that possibility. But yeah, certainly, I mean, I don't think it took a rocket scientist to see that. It's taken, what, 9 months, and Ruiz and Wilder couldn't make the fight, so it probably wasn't going to happen. And it's fallen over. Should have probably, it could have happened. Wilder's got his eye on a fight with Anthony Joshua next year. He is talking potentially, his trainer Malik Scott, that Wilder may be back out in October. Clearly it won't be against Ruiz though. So if it is out in October for Wilder, it's probably going to be a tune-up of some description to give him some activity to head into what could be a Joshua fight. But even then, that's not a lock either, as we know. They've been talking about that for 5 years, nothing's happened. Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared. I'm out.